At 42, the loudest man at the table had the newest truck, biggest house, and stories for every purchase. The quietest man had an old phone, a paid-off sedan, and almost nothing to say. Everyone assumed they knew who was winning. They didn't. 19 years later, one of them would still be working because the bills demanded it. The other could walk away on a Tuesday, and nobody in that room would see it coming. The dinner was held in the back room of a steakhouse near the interstate. It was the kind of place where the menus were heavy. The lighting made everybody look successful. Trevor sat near the center. He'd just moved into a 4-bedroom house with a 3-car garage. He showed pictures before anyone asked. The kitchen had white stone counters. The driveway held a truck with a payment larger than your first apartment's rent. Nobody said that part out loud. They just nodded. Trevor was good at making progress visible. Every raise became something people could point to. Every bonus turned into a story. You sat 3 seats away, turning a water glass slowly between your fingers. Your phone was 5 years old. Your sedan had a small dent near the rear wheel. When Trevor asked what was new, you shrugged. Not much. That answer made people comfortable. It confirmed what they already believed. Trevor was moving up. You were standing still. A coworker named Melissa leaned over and asked whether you planned to upgrade your car. You smiled. It still runs. She laughed because she thought you were joking. You weren't. Across the table, Trevor discussed a beach trip, a possible boat, and the promotion he deserved. The room followed him. Attention usually does. Nobody asked why you'd turned down the larger house near the golf course. Nobody knew your mortgage balance had dropped faster than expected. Nobody knew you'd made one quiet decision after another before the money reached your checking account. And nobody knew you'd been keeping score. Not against Trevor, against the number of years your life still belonged to a paycheck. That was the question nobody at the table thought to ask. How did the man who looked least successful end up with the most control over his life? You and Trevor started at the company within 4 months of each other. Same gray cubicles, same manager who called every emergency an opportunity. Back then, neither of you had much. Trevor drove a used coupe with a cracked dashboard. You drove a small sedan that pulled slightly left on the highway. Lunch came from home most days. A bad repair bill could ruin the month. For a while, your lives looked almost identical. Then the first raises came. Trevor replaced the coupe. He said the old car made him look temporary. The new truck made him feel established. That was what made your decision harder. You wanted something newer, too. You'd watched adults apologize for what they couldn't afford. You knew how shame could stick to an object, a car, a house with peeling paint. But the night before visiting the dealership, you opened a spreadsheet. Just back-of-the-envelope math on a slow laptop. The payment wasn't only the payment. It was insurance, fuel, registration, repairs that cost more because every part cost more. You closed the browser. The next morning, you drove the same sedan to work. Nobody noticed. That became the pattern. Trevor's raises arrived in the parking lot. Yours disappeared before anyone could see them. He moved into a downtown apartment. You increased a retirement contribution by 3%. He bought furniture on a payment plan. You sent extra money toward the mortgage. He started ordering lunch because bringing food felt like something junior employees did. You kept the same brown lunch bag until the zipper broke. People didn't call you disciplined. They called you cautious, sometimes cheap. Trevor once joked that you were saving for a funeral. You laughed with everyone else. Still, people began inventing explanations. Maybe your family had money. Maybe you were building a business on the side. Maybe you simply didn't know how to enjoy yourself. Each guess made more sense to them than the truth. The truth didn't look like anything. No dramatic sacrifice, no lucky break, no secret investor. Just money leaving one account before your lifestyle could claim it. At year 5, Trevor earned slightly more than you. At year 10, the difference was still small. Yet his life looked twice as expensive. That was the first real gap. It wasn't that you earned more. You were paying a smaller price to be seen. The price didn't arrive as one bill. That would have been easier. It came in small upgrades that looked harmless alone. A better neighborhood meant higher taxes. The larger house needed more furniture. The new truck made the older clothes feel wrong. The expensive vacation changed what counted as a normal vacation. Nothing forced Trevor to keep going. That was what made the trap hard to name. He was choosing all of it, but he wasn't choosing in a vacuum. Every purchase created an audience, and every audience created a standard. At work, people expected Trevor to know the new restaurants. His neighbors expected the lawn to look right. His friends expected the next trip to be better than the last. Even good news came with a bill attached. A promotion meant drinks for the team. A bonus meant a weekend away. A strong year meant the kitchen suddenly looked dated. Trevor wasn't reckless. He paid on time. He kept the lights on. He contributed enough to get the company match. From the outside, he was doing everything right. That was the scary part. You weren't immune to any of this. You felt the pull. At open houses, you imagined a quiet office upstairs. At dealerships, you noticed how softly the doors closed. At dinner, you sometimes wished your life came with better stories. Silence could feel a lot like falling behind, so you made one private rule. A raise couldn't change your life for 90 days. No new payment, no major purchase, no announcement. You gave the money time to stop feeling exciting. Most of it did. That pause saved you from decisions you would have defended for years. It also showed you something. The need to explain a purchase was often stronger before the purchase. Afterward, the payment remained. The feeling didn't. By year 12, Trevor's income had climbed into the low six figures. Yours wasn't far behind. But his fixed costs rose with every step. Your fixed costs barely moved. Coworkers saw 2 salaries. They didn't see 2 burn rates. They saw Trevor's boat. They didn't see the storage fee, insurance, repairs, and weekends spent trying to justify owning it. They saw your old sedan. They didn't see what the missing payment bought each month. So where did that invisible money go? It went somewhere nobody could applaud. Your system wasn't complicated. That helped. On payday, money moved before you could negotiate with yourself. A fixed amount went to the mortgage. Another piece went to retirement. A smaller amount went into a cash reserve at a different bank. You kept enough in checking to live normally. Not miserably. Normally. You still took trips. You still ate out. You bought good shoes because cheap ones hurt your knees. You just refused to turn every good month into a permanent monthly cost. That distinction changed everything. When the first sedan finally died, you replaced it with a 3-year-old model. You paid a large down payment. Then you cleared the remaining balance early. When friends renovated kitchens, you replaced a broken cabinet hinge. When the roof needed work, the money was already waiting. No credit card scramble, no panic, no speech about being blessed. Just a check, a receipt, and a quiet Saturday morning. By then, people had settled on their favorite theory. You must have inherited something. Your grandfather had died years earlier. Someone remembered that. The story grew on its own. Nobody knew he'd left you an old watch, a box of tools, and no money. You never corrected them. Explaining yourself felt expensive, too. The system kept running. Every raise increased the automatic transfers. Every paid-off debt redirected money toward the next goal. Every emergency fund withdrawal triggered a refill before anything else changed. Simple. Boring. Hard to discuss at dinner. By year 15, your mortgage payment disappeared. For the first time, a large part of your paycheck had nowhere urgent to go. Trevor assumed you'd finally upgrade the house. You almost did. You toured a brick place with tall windows and a perfect kitchen. For 20 minutes, you pictured a different version of yourself living there. Then you stood alone in the empty garage. The silence felt wrong. Not peaceful. Hungry. You realized the house didn't solve a problem. It created a role you'd have to keep playing. You walked away. But the system wasn't born from confidence. It was built from fear. Long before the automatic transfers, there had been a kitchen table. There had been 2 tired adults. And there had been $40 counted twice under a yellow light. That was why growing wealth still didn't feel like safety. And that was the part you hadn't told anyone. You were 9, the first time you understood that money could change the temperature of a room. Your father came home late and placed 4 $10 bills on the kitchen table. Your mother counted them. Then she counted them again. The refrigerator hummed behind her. A utility notice sat beneath a chipped sugar bowl. Neither parent raised a voice. That somehow made it worse. They spoke in pieces. Gas first. Groceries through Friday. Maybe the electric company would wait. You sat in the hallway, pretending to tie a shoe that was already tied. You didn't understand the bills. You understood their shoulders. The way your father's dropped when the numbers stopped working. The way your mother folded the cash as if making it smaller could make it last. After that, money became something you handled quietly. You didn't ask for the school jacket. You stopped mentioning the field trip. When relatives talked about vacations, you watched your parents' faces before you reacted. Years later, that same instinct followed you into adulthood. A growing account balance never felt like extra money. It felt like a wall that might still be too thin. You checked the reserve after paying for the roof. You checked it again before bed. Nothing was wrong. Your body didn't believe the screen. That fear helped build the system. It also kept moving the finish line. First, you needed 3 months of expenses, then 6, then a paid-off car, then the mortgage gone. Each milestone brought relief for a week, maybe 2. Then the old kitchen returned. Not the room itself, the feeling. $40, 2 tired adults, a problem waiting under the sugar bowl. Trevor mistook your restraint for confidence. It wasn't always confidence. Sometimes it was a child still listening from the hallway. And by year 17, that child had more money than either parent had ever imagined. He still didn't feel safe. So why did a growing balance still feel like $40 on a kitchen table? The rumors got better as the years passed. Someone said your grandfather had owned land. Someone else said you'd invested early in a technology company. Melissa became convinced you had rental properties under another name. Trevor liked the inheritance theory. It protected the math. If your calm came from luck, he didn't have to question his own choices. You never offered a correction. Not because the truth was impressive, because it wasn't. There was no property empire, no hidden company, no envelope from a rich relative. Your income hadn't climbed fast. Some years were good, some were flat. One year, a medical bill took most of the cash reserve. Another year, the market dropped hard enough to make the retirement account look broken. You kept the transfers running. That was it. The old sedan became a newer used sedan. The small house got fresh paint, a repaired roof, and the same number of bedrooms. You took trips, but you paid for them before leaving. You helped your mother replace a failing furnace. You bought concert tickets without checking the account 3 times. The point wasn't to avoid life. It was to keep pleasure from becoming a contract. Trevor's life worked differently. By then, his truck had been replaced twice. The boat was gone, but the loan had rolled into something else. The 4-bedroom house had a new kitchen and almost no equity beyond the down payment. He earned good money. He just couldn't let any of it remain unassigned. At the office, he still looked ahead of you. He dressed better. He knew the right places. He carried the easy confidence of a man whose life photographed well. Then his father got sick. Trevor needed 3 weeks away. He had vacation days. What he didn't have was room. The truck payment continued. The mortgage continued. The credit cards continued. He spent the first week beside a hospital bed. He spent the second week answering work messages. By the third, he was back at his desk. You saw him in the break room, staring at a vending machine without buying anything. He said, "I can't afford to disappear." It was the first honest sentence either of you had said about money in years. A month later, your own mother needed help after surgery. You took 6 weeks, no speech, no announcement, just 6 weeks. That difference didn't come from a secret windfall. It came from 19 years of leaving some money without a job. And that was what all the rumors had missed. There was no inheritance, no private company, no brilliant trade nobody else knew about. After 19 years, the number was about $1,470,000. Most of it wasn't sitting in cash. It was a paid-off home, retirement accounts, a broad mix of ordinary funds, a reserve large enough to carry the household through more than a year. No consumer debt, no truck payment, no boat loan, no monthly bill designed to prove you were doing well. That closed the mystery. It didn't explain the freedom. The real reveal came on a Tuesday morning. Your manager called you into a glass office and offered another promotion. More money, a larger team, more travel. 5 years earlier, you would have accepted before he finished speaking. This time, you asked for the weekend. You went home and ran the numbers. The page showed you could leave entirely and cover the household for years. Not because you feared losing the opportunity, because you finally understood you didn't need it. On Monday, you declined. The manager blinked. He explained the title again, as though you hadn't heard it. You thanked him. Then you went back to your desk. Nothing dramatic happened. No music, no applause. Your old fear waited for panic. It never came. A few months later, you reduced your hours. You started taking your mother to appointments without checking the work calendar first. You ate lunch outside. You stopped answering emails after dinner. The account balance had bought those things, but only because you hadn't already promised the money to a more expensive identity. Trevor heard about the reduced schedule. At first, he thought you were being pushed out. Then Melissa told him it was voluntary. He found you near the parking lot. For once, he didn't joke about the sedan. He asked one question. How? You could have given him the number. You didn't. You said, I kept my raises. That wasn't the whole story, but it was the part he could use. For 19 years, quiet hadn't made you wealthy by itself. Quiet had given your decisions somewhere to survive. Away from applause, away from comparison, away from the pressure to turn every improvement into evidence. The wealth was never the loud part. The choice was. Trevor wasn't foolish. You weren't a genius. He loved being seen. You learned early that being seen could be expensive, that difference shaped thousands of ordinary choices. Some of his choices brought real joy. The beach trips mattered. The dinners became memories. The big house held birthdays, arguments, and children running through the hall. This wasn't a story about never spending. It wasn't a claim that quiet people are automatically better with money. Silence can hide fear. It can hide confusion. It can keep someone from asking for help. Your silence did all three before it became useful. What changed was the purpose behind it. You stopped keeping money quiet because you were ashamed. You kept your plans private because they were easier to protect that way. You didn't need every raise to change the view from the driveway. You needed it to change the distance between your family and the next emergency. That distance grew slowly. One automatic transfer, one declined upgrade, one repair paid without panic, 1 year that looked almost the same as the year before. From outside, it wasn't much of a story. That was the advantage. Nobody competed with it. Nobody talked you out of it. Nobody expected the next version to be bigger. Years later, you still drove an ordinary car. The house still had 3 bedrooms. The kitchen counters weren't stone. On Tuesday afternoons, though, you could leave work early. You could sit beside your mother at a doctor's office. You could turn down a title that came with too much of your life attached. You could sleep through a market drop without wondering which bill would bounce. The quiet hadn't bought a richer-looking life. It had bought room. Room to wait. Room to help. Room to say no. Room to leave. And after years of believing safety was a number, you finally understood it differently. Safety was waking up without having to impress anyone. Freedom was knowing the next paycheck mattered less than it used to. Nobody at that steakhouse had noticed the moment you became wealthy. There wasn't one. There were only quiet Tuesdays, stacked one after another, until your life belonged to you.